TMC, life's always pretty. Lively chats to beats so grand, with music and news, it's all combined. Cebu's voice in every line, the most Cebu, always bright. Music and live one, day and night, from dawn to dusk, the sounds you trust. TMC Cebu, the best of us.
TMC 105.1, the best of us. You're tuning in to Top of the Morning, only here. And guys, wow, what a morning it is. It started off kind of bright and sunny, and then all of a sudden, nikalit rag bundak ang uwan. Ah, kaulit. I wore the wrong shoes today. Hahay, sige na lang. Life goes on, padayon gyapon ta dire. Again, mayong buntag kaninyo tanan. Good morning to all our listeners, all our viewers on our live feed sa atong Facebook Live at TMC 105.1, our YouTube Live at Tops Media Center, and of course our TikTok Live at Tops Media Center as well. Mayong buntag kaninyo tanan. How are you all doing? I hope wala ra mo nabasa sa uwan if namo diri sa Cebu. Kay ni kalit ra jud. What jud ko ka-expect mo kalit rag uwan karon kay init kay to gay na. Ay, sige na lang. Today is March 26, and whether or not, or wherever you are right now, rather, whether you're stuck in traffic, stuck in the rain, waiting for a ride, or already late for work or school, or in work and school right now because it's already 10 a.m. naman day. We feel you. We feel you. I don't know if you guys noticed anything sa inyong earlier commute this morning. Did you notice anything unusual, out of the ordinary sa inyong pag-commute gaina? If it's not clear now, maybe it might be clear later on. Kay today, commuting might be tough. Because today, amidst the ongoing fuel crisis in the country, there is going to be a nationwide transport strike happening today and tomorrow. So today's show, we're going to break it all down for you just a bit. You know, what's happening, why are prices so high, and what does this transport strike mean for you? And you know, more importantly, how is this going to affect you in your everyday life? So, stick with us, Cebu, or wherever you are right now. Stick with us. Get in the comment sections. Let us know what you think about our takes, and share your thoughts about what's happening right now in the country. Again, drop a comment atong live stream, Facebook, TMC 105.1, YouTube, Tops Media Center, and TikTok Live, Tops Media Center as well. And if you want to tune in to us, nga pinaradyo nga style, you can always head on over to our website, topsmediacenter.com. All right. Anyway, let us know, how was your morning commute? Are you feeling any significant changes today? And, you know, let us know what's happening on your end. Anyway, let's start with the basics of what's actually happening right now. So as of March 24, 2026, the Philippines has been placed under a national energy emergency. Now, when you hear the words energy emergency, it sounds very serious, diba? And that's because, you know, it is. It's a very serious emergency. Dili ni siya basta-basta nga gina-declare, guys. This is something that the government only does when there is a real and immediate threat to the country's energy supply and the overall stability of the country. So what's triggered this? Obviously, the major disruption in the global also oil supply, and unfortunately, it's all of a big part of it is tied to the current tensions in the Middle East. And for context, for those of you Kwan, who aren't fully aware yet, why does what's happening in the Middle East matter so much? That's because a huge percentage of the world's oil passes through that region, particularly through critical routes like the Strait of Hormuz, where there's, there's a little bit of instability there at the moment. There's conflict, and historically speaking as well, there's been a lot of instability there, whether it's through conflicts like the current conflict that's ongoing between the United States, Israel, and Iran, blockades, or actually even just the threat of escalation in the region. It's enough to affect that particular supply route, and global oil production is affected because of that. So even though layo kaita geographically speaking from this region where conflict is happening, affected yapunta. And that brings us here to the Philippines. Why are we especially vulnerable to these types of situations? Well, simply put, it's because the Philippines is very heavily dependent on imported fuel. Last I checked, estimates show that imported fuel takes up about 90 to 98% of our oil supply. That means halos tanan jud nga ginagamit nato nga diesel, gas, even jet fuel kay gina-import nato from other countries. We don't really have enough local production to sustain our own needs. So when global prices go up, wala tay buffer. There's nothing to protect us from that sudden surge. So maigo jud ta direkta. And this is important to understand. This isn't just about, oil companies suddenly deciding to increase prices randomly. Fuel prices here are influenced heavily by the global market benchmarks like Dubai crude. So when the global price goes up, local pump prices follow. It's a very automatic chain reaction. Oh, sorry about that. I felt like playing a little music in the background kay para dili kayo heavy ang talk. Dili pud kay ko boring paminawon kay kung seryoso ra pud ta permente kay murag lain na boring ra kayo. Anyway, going back to what I was saying. So kana 90 to 98% of our oil supply is imported. We don't have enough to sustain our own needs. And once global prices spike, ma-feel nato ang increase immediately kay wala tay buffer to protect us from the sudden increase in global benchmarks like Dubai crude. Anyway, let's try to understand a bit more about why why that's the case. Once mutaas ang presyo sa kanang Dubai crude and all that in the international market, importers here in the Philippines have to buy fuel at a higher cost. The higher cost is then passed down to distributors, to gas stations, and eventually to us, the consumers. So every time you see a price hike announcement, that's actually the delayed effect of something that already happened in the global market days or weeks before. Now, here's where it gets even more serious. Fuel is not just something we use for our cars and our motorcycles. Fuel is at the center of almost everything in the economy. Transportation, first and foremost, fuel. Delivery trucks bringing food and other goods need gyapon fuel. Even electricity, especially in areas that rely on diesel nga power plants, fuel gyapon. So when prices go up, everything else follows. Ang inyong mga pamasahe mutaas, delivery costs go up, prices of goods in the markets and supermarkets go up. That's why you might have noticed not just gas, but even our groceries, our daily essentials are getting more expensive. Muna gitawag nga ripple effect. And that's why the government stepped in and declared a national energy emergency. This allows them to implement urgent measures, ideally, like controlling supply distribution, coordinating with oil companies, and possibly rolling out subsidies or fuel assistance programs. It also signals to the public and to the businesses in the country that this is not a normal situation. This is a crisis, and it needs a coordinated effort in order to address. Now, just to be clear, this doesn't mean we're running out of fuel immediately in the country. It's not like ugma wala anjud hurot anjud tanan, but it does mean supply is very tight. Prices are going to be very unstable, and the situation can change quickly depending on what happens globally. And that uncertainty is what makes the situation very, very difficult. Because even experts have to watch closely para mas masabtan nila ba kung they need to, or rather, just to get a good understanding of how prices are going to be affected. They really need to look closely at the conflict in the Middle East. Kung musamot pa ba na, kung mas maapektuhan og samot ang supply chain, or kung mas stabilize ang tanan-tanan within the coming mga weeks. So if you're wondering why everything suddenly feels more expensive, things feel a bit more stressful, this might be where it all began. Dili lang siya local nga issue. This is a global chain nga reaction. And unfortunately, countries like the Philippines, who rely very heavily on imported oil, okay, we are the most affected by all of this. Outside of the ones who are directly involved in the conflict. Now we want to hear from you, our listeners, our viewers. Get into the comments of our live stream right now. Before today, na-notice ba ninyo ang increase sa prices? Did something change sa daily, weekly nga routine ninyo when it came to commuting and budgeting? When it came to your food choices? Or how often you would go out? Share your experiences. Because, if you... Every now and then, I'm going to check the comment sections and read your comments and react to them live. So guys, let us know in the comment sections. Nabantayan na ba ninyo ang change in prices? And how have you responded to these changes so far? Now, let's get into one of the big questions, right? Like, why is gas so expensive right now? There really isn't a single reason to it. The situation is the result. The situation we're in right now is really the result of multiple global and local factors all happening at the same time. But probably the biggest reason behind it is the current conflict in the Middle East that's affecting one of the biggest trade routes. And because of all that, world oil prices have surged past $100 per barrel. That's already considered very high. And when prices go up again for the Philippines, we feel it immediately. Okay, we're not oil producers. 90 to 98% of our oil is imported. So whatever price we buy for oil internationally, that cost eventually gets passed down to consumers here. Like I said, and like I mentioned earlier, rather, the issue of geopolitics, the current conflict in the Middle East, that has made transportation through the Strait of Hormuz practically non-existent for the most part. Only Iran, from what I know, only Iran has been able to run their ships through the Strait of Hormuz recently. Their oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz recently, and it was mainly going towards China from what I remember reading. And the Strait of Hormuz accounts for around, the figure I last saw was 23% of global oil supply trade. So it's a very major supply route. And when this major supply route is threatened, the global market reacts very fast to it. Even just the possibility, the threat of escalation is enough to have suppliers who usually pass through that route have second thoughts about moving through there. And I think there was also an issue a while back that the insurance for a lot of the supply ships has I forgot which country it was exactly, but I think it was actually several of them. The insurance companies are actually backing out of insuring ships that have to pass through the Strait of Hormuz because ang ilang fear is lugi sila kung ilang i-insure tong mga ships, and na dako kay nga risk of damage of when they pass through the Strait of Hormuz right now, because the nation of outside of missiles flying through that area, there was also threats of sea mines being placed in the Strait of Hormuz. So the possibility of damage is going to be much higher now than it was sa una. Shout out kay Georgia Alina sa atong comment section sa atong Facebook Live. Guys, again, feel free to share your thoughts with us in our comment sections. Facebook at TMC 105.1, YouTube at Tops Media Center, and of course our TikTok Live at Tops Media Center as well. Okay, hang on. Ako lang i-adjust ka dito akong cam. Okay, off-center ka to gaya na. My fault. Now anyway, back to what I was talking about. Anyway, the Strait of Hormuz is a major supply route, and once that once these major supply routes are threatened, the global market reacts very quickly. Even the possibility of disruption and escalation can immediately push prices higher because traders and suppliers will immediately try to anticipate shortages. And like I was explaining earlier, even the companies that are supposed to uh, ensure the ships that go through these supply routes will suddenly back out. Now imagine this. If shipments slow down or stop, even temporarily, that means less oil globally. So when supply goes down while demand stays the same, that's when prices will go up. That's basic supply and demand. But the really unfortunate thing about all of this is that this doesn't just affect the price of gasoline. Like we mentioned earlier, it affects the prices of our goods. Transporting goods now becomes so much more expensive. And when these transportation costs go up, businesses have to adjust their prices. So our basic goods. Manangkan, I believe from what I read recently, there's been a 4% increase in inflation in the Philippines. That was a report I read about 2 days ago. So who knows? Who knows if we've gone even higher today? Maybe we can check it out later. So it's really going to be a domino effect, Jude. From farms to markets, from factories to stores, every step becomes more costly now. And it really doesn't stop there because energy. Power plants rely on fuel to generate electricity. So if fuel prices remain high, there's a possibility that electricity rates could increase as well. So now you're not just paying more sa pagtubil ninyo sa gas station, you might also be paying more at home. Just leaving the lights on. Turning on the electric fan kay igang kayo. Your electricity bill, your food expenses, your daily commute, it all adds up. And that's why a lot of people are probably gonna start adjusting na to this change in prices. Probably a lot of people are going to start cutting back on mga unnecessary trips or trips that, for fun lang unta. Not not school related or not work related. Maybe some people are choosing to commute now instead of driving their own cars, or switching from driving their car to driving their motorcycle because motorcycles are more fuel efficient. We're all, gonna be adapting in our own ways lang siguro. And this is something that Jiggy brought up in one of our recent episodes as well. Ang ilang monthly nga groceries kay merg ni increase by almost 3,000, 2 to 3,000 pesos. So grabe na jud kayo ang price increase in the country. And I'd like to ask you guys, how much has your weekly expenses increased in the past since the conflict in the Middle East started? Since gas prices started to increase exponentially. And what have you been doing to 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 lessen the burden on yourself? Have you cut back on eating out? Are you budgeting more? Are you changing some of your daily, your weekly routines? Drop your answers in the comment sections. Ooh, what about sa inyong... Oh, there was a conmanda. There was a cutback on increasing the uh the rate of public transportation fares, which is part of the reason for the transportation strike that's happening right now. There were a lot of drivers and their union groups that weren't very happy about that. And speaking of that transportation strike, let's touch on it now. So today, March 26, transport groups across the Philippines have officially launched a transport strike that is, it's expected to last for at least 2 days, today and tomorrow. This involves several transport organizations, particularly those representing jeepney drivers and mga operators. And, well, this fuel crisis most definitely directly affects our jeepney drivers, which remain one of the most important and widely used modes of public transportation in the country. I think it was 2 days ago in Manila, somewhere in Manila, where halos wala na jud sila masakyan dito, and commuters were left with no choice but to walk to their destination na. So it might get uglier now with this nationwide transport strike. You can probably expect fewer jeepneys on the road. Although when I was commuting earlier, it didn't immediately pop out to me. Maybe it's because of the route I took. I'm not entirely sure as to the full extent of the strike that's happening here in Cebu. Okay, usually when it comes to kaning mga nationwide nga mga walkouts and strikes and all that, mo vary jud ang intensity from city to city, region to region. So it's really hard to tell, jud. So I just like to ask you guys, if taga Cebu mo, like, how was the commute this morning? Were you having trouble getting a jeepney? Were you having trouble hailing Move It or Angkas? Or maybe kay gadali ka, napugos na lang kaglakaw pa dong sa imong destination. Let me know. So it's kind of hard to break this issue, the issue of the transportation strike, down to a immediately down to a for or against it type of narrative, because it's really complex, right? Firstly, when it comes to the drivers, for a lot of them, this strike is going to be about survival. Some drivers used to earn around 800 to 1,000 pesos a day before expenses, or was after expenses, but now with rising fuel prices, boundary fees, and lower passenger volume in some areas, some are reporting earnings dropping to around 200 to 400 pesos a day. I mean, think about that. After a full day of driving under heat, traffic, grabe kang stress, halos wala na mabilin para nila ug para sa ilang mga pamilya. Now, even in recent months, fuel prices were rather volatile. But with the recent increase to diesel, well, it's they've taken a huge hit, and for them, this strike is a way to actively demand government action, whether that be through fuel subsidies, fare adjustments, and maybe clearer policies that that can help support their livelihood and ensure that naa sila kita nga sakto ra sad para nila ug sa ilang pamilya. Another key issue tied to these protests is the ongoing public utility vehicle modernization program, which some transport groups there's still a lot of discussion that's happening around it. Like shifting to newer, more expensive vehicles aren't easy to comply with, and especially for small operators who cannot afford the costs. So for them, this strike is not just about today's income; it's about their long-term future. Because this isn't going to be the only time, siguro. There's going to be a global conflict that's going to affect global supply lines. So ensuring change happens now to safeguard the public transportation industry. I think it's a no-brainer, no? But then again, there's also the other side of the situation, which is the commuters, right? For commuters, the situation is also very difficult. Fewer jeepneys means fewer options. You end up competing with more people for mga limited rides. That means longer waiting times. And depende ra sad sa kuan sa inyong route there. I know for a fact the Banawa route is you're almost always competing with hundreds of people for the very few jeepneys that pass through that area. And you end up having to choose alternative transportation options, like ang kanang mga ride-hailing apps, tricycles, taxis, and if demand for these apps increases, then it's only going to get harder for you to seek them out as well. I mean, we've already had problems with our ride-hailing apps nga even during peak traffic hours. Dugay gyapon ng makabook because demand for ride-hailing apps has already, long before this current increase in fuel prices, has already increased. There were some people who were complaining ang usual nila nga wait time for a ride-hailing app is jumped to 30 minutes, sometimes even an hour. And but mulisid na jud siya. So tato pa parehas ra gyud tanan lisod. Students might be late for class, employees risk being late for work or worse, and parents have to adjust schedules just to bring their kids to school. And for daily wage earners, even a single disrupted commute can mean losing income for the day. So, it raises the question, is the strike justified? Because on one hand, drivers are fighting for their livelihood and survival. And on the other hand, commuters, who are also struggling, are now heavily affected by this disruption. And I really don't think that there's an easy answer to this question, no? And this kind of, to me, uh, highlights just how reliant we can be on jeepneys and how there isn't really, it doesn't feel like there's enough alternatives when it comes to our mass transport systems. If one sector stops, then everything else gets affected. It really shows how fragile our public transport system can be during crises like this. And what would long-term solutions for this look like? Is it going to be better urban planning, more sustainable support for the public transportation industry? And what is this support going to look like? I personally don't know what the answer to that could be. What about you sa atong comment sections, sa atong listeners dira? Do you have an idea that you'd like to share on how we can safeguard and improve our public transportation system so that pag abot sa mga crises sa global nga supply chain, kita dili ra kita as affected as we are right now? Kay karon muro jud patchwork solution ra ako ang mahuna-hunaan permente gani. We're more, it feels like we have our solutions are more reactions of when things get bad instead of preventing the problem from happening from being a big issue in the first place. Maybe it is just an issue of planning, no? So today, whether you're a commuter stuck in line waiting for a ride, or you're a driver joining the strike, one thing is clear: everyone is really feeling the pressure. And that's why conversations like this matter. We want to hear from you. Unsa ang inyong experience today? Were you struggling to get a ride? Do you support the strike? Or do you think it causes more harm than good? Comment down below, share your thoughts, and let's talk about it live. Now let's talk about things from the Cebuano perspective. Over the past few days, I believe 7 days ago as well, that we saw transport groups in Cebu staging protests and mobilizing to let their voices be heard. And it all led up to today, as a lot of these groups, I don't know if all of them, have joined the national transportation strike. So that should mean there are fewer jeepneys now on the road. And that's definitely going to cause an immediate ripple effect across the entire city. And if you stepped outside this morning, you might have felt it. You might have noticed it. Mas lisod mangitag jeep. Mas dugay ang hulat sa mga ride-hailing apps. I mean, think about when jeepneys are less available, people will shift to other modes. Some will book mga ride-hailing apps like Angkas, Move It, Maxim. But with the sudden increase in demand and with the same amount of supply, that means things are going to get it's going to get harder to book a ride, and potentially with the sudden increase in demand as well, we could see an increase in price. I remember a time when Move It was the cheaper alternative to Angkas, and now it feels like prices have increased steadily to the point nga I genuinely don't know if we can even consider Move It the cheaper nga option to Angkas. How much more now, like with the sudden increase in demand? Like, what is that price range going to look like moving forward? Jibo, hi, Jibo, sa atong comment section sa atong Facebook Live. Shout out kanimo. And if not ride hailing, what's next? Taxi. Pero kabalusad da nga, di po in town barato po ng taxi. Especially during peak hours, lisod pag yun pangitaon ang mga available nga units. Some drivers kay kan ma-choosy pud sila pag abot sa ilang mga pasahero. Kay kung matimingan nga ang imong destination, makaagi sa lag mga traffic heavy nga route, kay di sila mosugot. And then what comes after that? Maglakaw na lang ta. If makaya ra sa distansya na to, maglakaw na lang ta. Pero let's be real. Init pod kaya. Cebu can be a very hot nga city, especially in the late mornings into the afternoon. So imagine students, workers, even mga senior citizens forced to walk longer distances just to get to where they need to be. And sometimes you're not even walking to get to your destination. You're walking to find a jeepney, to find a vehicle that you can ride to get to your destination. This could really be the reality for many Filipinos and Cebuanos, or rather, moving forward. Jeepneys are still very much the backbone of our system of public transportation. They carry thousands of commuters every single day, from students to employees to even ang atong mga vendors nga padung sa merkado. Without them, things will get congested. The entire public transportation system will just immediately slow down. It's going to immediately struggle. And this is going to affect everybody. It's going to affect businesses, kaya ang mga employees, kung ang mga employees malate or dili kaabot on time, operations get disrupted. Even customers, ang mga consumers, they might choose to stay home because lisod na kayo ang biyahe. So the economic effect isn't just on drivers, it spreads across the city. Now let's talk about the drivers themselves. Many of them joined the strike because they feel their concerns, especially about rising fuel costs and the modernization requirements, are not being fully addressed. For them, dili siya sayon gani nga decision, because every day nga dili sila mobiyahe, that's income lost. Gamay na gani kayo ilang kan makuha karon unsa na lang kaha kung di sila mo biyahe that day. So the situation really shows both sides. Commuters struggling to get to their destinations and drivers fighting for, what they believe is fair for their livelihood. I did hear talks nga the local government here in Cebu was preparing for this. Or was that the national government? I forgot. But we based on how transport strikes have occurred in the past and how the LGU has responded, I think one of the most common things nga ilang buhaton kay mag-implement sila ka ng mga libreng sakay nga mga programs, mo coordinate sila with some bus operators to help ease the burden, and I think there was I'm not sure, but I think there was like mga government vehicles but that they made available. I don't fully remember na. I need to double check on that. But even with a lot of those measures, it doesn't feel like it's enough to fully replace the volume of jeepneys on the road. So today and tomorrow, maybe patience is going to really be key. Pag-expect na lang jud nga na ay mga delays. Pag-expect nga there's going to be a certain level of inconvenience sa inyong pag-commute. And maybe if you have the option to work from home or adjust your schedule, then that might be, your best choice. Besides that, there's also going to be the need to plan ahead. If you need to go somewhere, maybe try leaving earlier than usual. Pero ayaw lang kayo pagdali gani kay makadungag na sa stress. And at the same time, I think the situation can also open us up to another conversation about how dependent we are on certain transport systems like the jeepney, how vulnerable we can become without those systems, or when those systems are disrupted. I mean, it raises questions in my mind, like, do we have enough alternatives in our public transportation system? Is our public transportation system resilient enough to withstand further changes sa global supply chain, further disruptions, rather? And what do we need to change moving forward so that situations like this don't hit commuters this hard? So to everyone listening right now, whether naa mo sa jeep, nagulat mo sa kalsada, or stuck mo in traffic, amping mo tanan. Stay patient, and if you can, extend a bit of understanding to everyone going through the same situation today. Anyway, we want to hear more from you guys, especially atong mga Cebu nga listeners dira. Kamusta ang situation sa inyong area right now? How was your commute this morning? Lisod mangitag kan jeep gay na? Kung nag-hail mo Move It or Maxim gay na, or Angkas, naglisod ba mo? Share your experience with us at the comment section. on our Facebook Live, TMC 105.1, our YouTube Live at Tops Media Center, and of course, our TikTok Live at Tops Media Center as well. Now, we did kind of mention it. Our public transportation system, is it resilient enough to withstand more global disruptions sa atong kuan fuel supply chain? Like, could it be that the system itself is the problem? Like, could this be a structural issue? Something deeper in how the energy system is designed in the country. Let's try exploring that. Because in the Philippines, oil prices were deregulated under the downstream Oil Industry Deregulation Act of 1998. So, what did this mean? What does this mean in simpler terms? It means that first and foremost, the government does not directly control or fix fuel prices. Instead, oil companies adjust prices based on global market movements, like the price of crude oil, exchange rates, and international demand. So, kung taas sa world market, yeah, again, we immediately feel it here. Walay delay, walay buffer, diretso jud siya sa mga consumers. Now, in theory, supposedly, ang kanang pag-deregulate nila, it's supposed to promote competition. The idea is if many companies are competing with each other, for consumers and all that, then prices should stay fair. Pero is that what happened in reality? Because if global prices rise across the board, then that just pushes all companies to raise their prices. So even if there is competition, pareho ra gyapon ang epekto sa mga consumers. And that's compounded by the fact nga we are very dependent on imported nga oil. We don't produce enough locally. So when it comes to global nga events, we are at the mercy of global of our neighbors rather, and what they choose to do that will unfortunately affect the global supply chain. If there's conflict in oil producing regions like Iran, if supply chains are disrupted, or if big economies increase demand, loy ta. Murag wala tay control sa situation. And we don't set the price. So this is why the global crisis has become a local crisis. Another layer to this is the fact is exchange rates and the fact that oil is traded in US dollars. So if the Philippine peso weakens against the dollar, even if global oil prices stay the same, we still end up paying more. So, double din ang igo ba? Global price increase plus currency depreciation. So, When I ask, is the system broken? It's not really a simple yes or no answer because technically speaking, the system is working as designed. But I think the real question is, does this design still work for us today? Because clearly we're struggling. Many Filipinos are struggling. Now let's talk about government intervention. Even with deregulation, the government is not completely powerless. There are mechanisms like fuel subsidies for public utility drivers, na ay mga programs like cash assistance or targeted subsidies. But I just don't know if these solutions are enough. At least according to a lot of the drivers who are out on the streets protesting right now, dagan kay sa ila niingon nga kulang jud. Sometimes pag gani delayed ang pag-roll out ani nila. And with the price of everything rising quickly, ang suporta nila doesn't always keep up with the pace ba. So now people are asking, should the government step in more aggressively? Should there be price caps? Should there be stronger regulation during crises? And here comes like the challenge of the balancing act with that. If government controls prices too much, oil companies might reduce supply or hesitate to import, which could lead to even more shortages. You control too much, you risk supply problems. Control too little, people suffer from high prices. Lisod ka siya i-balance. And alternative energy is just not there yet. Solar, wind, hydro. We don't have that type of, or we don't have a significant enough infrastructure in that here in the country. I know a lot of people are looking to invest in that right now, but as of the moment, I don't think we're there yet that we can let go more of our dependence on crude oil. Alternative energy is just not there yet. Renewable energy is just not there yet. So maybe part of the solution is moving forward better investment into that type of technology. Who knows? Because we do need backup systems. But as as the way things are right now, our backup systems are often powered by fossil fuels. But a lot of people are saying we should invest faster into alternative energy, and we should set up that infrastructure for it sooner, because every time there's a fuel crisis, pareho ra gyapon ang atong problema. It's like we're stuck in a cycle ba. A crisis happens, prices go up, people suffer, temporary solutions, then balik na sad. Crisis, price. Puro na lang ta band-aid solution, wala tay long-term nga fix. And I guess maybe that's just the way things are in the Philippines, because for the longest time we've been complaining about other things as well, like corruption in the country, and Borgyapon, nandot karon. It's still a big problem. So is the system broken, or is it just incomplete? Maybe the system isn't entirely wrong, but I don't think the system has evolved enough to keep up with changing demands and changing technology, emerging technology. And again, that balancing act to it all. Maybe we do need some level of deregulation for efficiency, but we still need the strong safeguards in times of crises. Maybe we need to have a more aggressive investment into renewable energy, and we need to improve our public transport systems to reduce fuel dependence, because at the end of the day, this is not just about oil. It's about how we design a system that protects people from constant shocks. Kaya if sige na lang tag balik-balik ani, pareho ra gyapon ang epekto, then something, clearly needs to change. But let me ask you guys, in your own opinion, do you think the system is broken? Or kulang lang jud sa implementation, sa regulation, ug sa long-term planning? And more importantly, what do you think we need to do moving forward? Comment your thoughts sa atong live stream. We want to hear your experiences, especially if you feel very affected by the current fuel crisis in the country. Anyway, I think that's all the time we have for today. If there's one takeaway that I'd like to impart on everybody, it's that it's not just about, the gas. This is about a system that affects every Filipino. From drivers to commuters to families at home, every time fuel prices go up, everything else follows. And what we're seeing right now is not just a temporary problem. It's a reflection of how dependent we are on global oil and how vulnerable we are when disruptions happen. And until we address bigger issues, we will keep facing the impact of crises like these. So that means we really need to push or to look for more long-term solutions. Better transport systems, more support for workers, more support for our public transportation industry, and maybe some serious investment into alternative energy. Dili lang nga fight for survival ta permente kada crisis nga moabot. We need to be prepared for the future. So, stay informed, stay patient, and most importantly, stay critical. Ask questions, hold systems accountable, and be part of the conversation. Before I go, one last question for everybody. What do you think is one solution you can give to help fix this crisis? Drop it in the comment sections. We'd love to read your ideas and maybe even feature them in our next discussion. So anyway, this has been Raf Chavez over here in Top of the Morning, TMC 105.1, The Best of Us. Daghang salamat sa inyong pagpaminaw and pag-amping mo always.